Right after my wife's funeral, when the white wreaths had not yet withered, my son looked straight into my eyes, his voice as cold as ice. "Dad, this house has to be sold, and you're going into a nursing home." I was stunned. The house, the place that held every drop of sweat, every laugh of my wife and me, meant nothing to him now but $1 million property. In the very moment of my greatest loss, my own flesh and blood treated me like a burden, like a shadow no one wanted. But they forgot one thing. When cornered, a father with nothing left to lose will rise and turn his pain into justice. This is not just a story about a house. It is a story of betrayal, of a shocking twist, and of the love of a granddaughter, the one who gave me reason to go on and the one who would witness the greedy pay their price. Before I continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. I'm deeply grateful for that. Now let me go on. I've heard many say that losing your life partner is the greatest pain. But standing at my wife's funeral, I realized there is another pain, harsher still. The only son we raised with every drop of sweat now looked at me not as a father, but as a burden. The small church in New England echoed with the mournful organ. Neighbors and friends shed tears as they said farewell to the gentle woman. I stood silently before the coffin, listening to their memories of her, and in my head, scenes of our life played back. Nights when she patched David's sweater, she skipped breakfast to save for his basketball shoes. I saw again how we carried him through a snowstorm when he was burning with fever, and the promise he whispered years ago, "One day I'll take care of you and Mom." But in the present, right in the middle of the funeral, David sat beside me with a distant gaze. He did not cry. His wife, Anna, kept glancing at her watch, her fingers fiddling with her phone. Among the mourning crowd, the two people closest by blood seemed colder than strangers. When the service ended and the guests left, Anna sat next to me. Her voice was gentle, but her words were knives. "Dad, this house is too big. It must be hard for you to manage. By the way, the funeral costs, have you figured that out?" David cut in blunt. "What she means is, sooner or later, you'll have to make arrangements. Keeping this house alone is too inconvenient." I froze. My wife had barely been laid to rest, yet they were already talking about houses and expenses, years of sacrifice, all the promises of the past, now reduced to cold calculation. That night, the wide house was dark. I sat at the dining table, staring at my wife's empty chair. For years that chair held her gentle gaze, her hand squeezing mine beneath the table. Now it was only emptiness and silence. The clock ticked slowly. A chilling question echoed in my mind. After losing my wife, have I also lost my son? The morning after the funeral, the house was eerily quiet. I had just set down my coffee when David and Anna walked in, their faces calm as if yesterday's funeral had never happened. They brought a box of cookies, a few polite words, and then went straight to the point. "Dad," David began evenly, "living alone in this house, it's really too much for you. We've talked it over. At a nursing home, you'll have people to take care of you. Here, it's only risk and loneliness." Anna nodded, adding, "We only want you to be safe. This house is too big. Keeping it is wasteful. If you sell it, you can live comfortably with nothing to worry about." I looked straight into my son's eyes. His words sounded reasonable, but his gaze betrayed calculation. He wasn't looking at me as a father, but as an obstacle to be removed for a transaction. Before I could speak, David pushed a folder across the table. "This is a buyer's card. They're ready to pay immediately. If you agree, all we need is your signature." My heart ached. They hadn't come to talk, but to impose a plan already prepared. Anna sat upright, her tone soft but cold. "Think it over. The longer you wait, the more the house loses value and the costs rise. This is the best time." I held my coffee cup, the heat steadying my trembling hand. One question pounded in my head. Even with his mother barely in the ground, did he only see market numbers? David frowned, his voice harsh. Dad, the reality is clear. Keeping this house only makes things worse. We've thought of your best interest. You should accept it. I slammed the cup down, the sound sharp. My eyes burned as I glared at him. Enough! This is your mother's and my house, the place we spent a lifetime of sweat and tears to keep. I will not sell, and I will not go into any nursing home. I can take care of myself. No one decides for me. Do you understand? The air thickened. Anna held her breath, and David froze. Then his face flushed red. He clenched his teeth and blurted out words more cruel than he realized. Even if you keep it, you won't live much longer. Sooner or later, this house will be ours anyway. I staggered. His words cut like a blade. No longer about caring for Dad or thinking of the future, but naked greed. They were counting down to my death. I stood, my voice shaking with fury. Get out! Now! David and Anna exchanged glances, then reluctantly left. When the door shut, silence filled the house. But this silence was no longer loneliness. It was the sign that a real battle had begun. That night, as darkness swallowed every window pane, the house became a hollow box, where even my sighs echoed. I sat in the living room, a lamp casting a narrow beam, the rest drowned in shadows. In my hand was the yellow legal pad I used for notes, but tonight my trembling hand could only scrawl broken words. I wrote and erased, struggling to cling to reason in the storm of emotions. Each line dragged back memories like deep cuts. I remembered the years of labor, working from dawn to midnight, construction by day, handyman jobs on weekends. Money was never enough, but I endured so David could grow up with more than I had. I remembered waking at 5 on freezing mornings, clutching a cheap sandwich, bitter with cold coffee, thinking only of his tuition. Some months I juggled 3 jobs, construction by day, plumbing repairs by night, and delivery on weekends. I believed my hardships had meaning because he was my son, because I wanted him to escape the poverty of my childhood. My wife was no different. She sacrificed even the smallest comforts. I remembered when David was in high school and needed a suit for a scholarship interview. We couldn't afford it, so she secretly skipped breakfast for a month, saving every penny until she could buy it. The day he stood before the mirror in that suit, she cried with joy, and my heart lit up. I believed he understood that he would carry his parents' sacrifices in his heart. But tonight, in this silent house, all I could hear was their voices from earlier. Dad, you'd be better in a nursing home. This house should be sold. Their words were cold as steel, stripped of all warmth of family. I asked myself, where had all those sacrifices gone? Or had I been deluding myself all along, believing my son would be grateful? I lifted my eyes to the photo on the wall. It was David's graduation picture. Back then, we sat in the stands, my wife clutching a tissue to wipe her tears, while I could only smile, because finally our efforts had borne fruit. I thought he would remember his parents' sacrifices, that he would return to embrace us and say thank you. But now, that same son looks straight at me, treating me like an excess item to be sorted, to be liquidated. My wife once said, "Dear, children are the savings of a lifetime." She wasn't wrong, but I never imagined that one day those savings would see their parents as an unwanted debt. That pain was what kept me awake through the night, sharper than the fatigue of working 3 shifts, harsher than the broken rib I once suffered on a construction site. I wrote in my notebook, not a burden, just 3 words, but as soon as I finished, my tears fell onto the page, blurring into a long stain. I wanted to remind myself I was once the one who built this family, the steady shoulder for my wife and son. I cannot let them turn me into a burden. I cannot let a lifetime of memories become meaningless. I rose and walked through each room. The long dining table where the 3 of us once gathered every evening now held only empty chairs and the cold smell of wood. The bedroom still had my wife's pillow, her faint scent lingering. I placed my hand on it and closed my eyes, as if to hear her gentle voice again. But when I opened them, there was only the cold room. I stepped into the garden, touched the wooden fence I had built with my own hands, and looked at the lavender she had planted. Everything reminded me that our love and efforts were real, carved into bone and blood, memories that could never be denied. But to my son, all of it reduced to property value. That feeling choked me. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in the quiet house, listening to the ticking of the clock, each strike a reminder that my time was running out, while my son's filial love had long been drained. I wondered, had my entire life been a mistake, believing that unconditional love would be repaid with gratitude? Or was it that here, in this country, where children were raised with too much abundance, they easily forgot the price their parents paid? Whatever the answer, the truth remained. I, the father who had sacrificed everything, was now nothing more than a burden that my only son wished to discard, and that was the cruelest pain of all. The next morning, as the house still smelled of damp dawn, the phone suddenly rang. I picked up after a few rings and heard Lily's trembling voice from London. "Grandpa, I'm sorry, I couldn't make it back. I miss Grandma so much." I closed my eyes, my chest tightening. "It's all right, sweetheart. She was always proud of you." She was silent for a moment, then whispered, "Yesterday, Mom called. She told me to convince you to sell the house, to move into a nursing home." I didn't know what to say. I gripped the receiver tightly. Clearly, David and Anna had begun pulling their daughter into this. I drew a deep breath. "Lily, there's something I've hidden for a long time. Today I have to tell you." I stood, walked slowly to the wooden cabinet, and pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside were the bank statements, tuition invoices neatly clipped. I laid them on the table, my hand trembling. "Your 4 years at university in London, the tuition and living expenses did not come from your parents. They were covered entirely by your grandmother and me." I opened each paper, reading aloud as if to carve it deeper. First year, tuition and living expenses, $21,500. Second year, $22,000. Third year, $23,200. Final year, $24,300. Altogether, nearly $91,000. All of it transferred directly from our account to the school. Here, look, the statement bears my name. I used my phone to snap photos and sent them to Lily by email. On the other end, silence. Then a muffled sob. "Grandpa, I can't believe it. I always thought it was from Mom and Dad." I bit my lip, forcing my voice steady. "They asked us not to tell. They wanted to keep their good image. But the truth is, your grandmother and I gave up everything, every drop of sweat, just so you could study properly." Her crying broke out, then her voice cracked. "Oh my God, in my second year, when I bought that old Mini Cooper, I kept thanking Mom, thinking she had saved for me. Now I understand. It was your money too." I closed my eyes, tears welling. "Your grandmother never wanted you to lack anything. Even when she had to forego buying her own supplements, she chose to send you more so you'd have enough. She only asked one thing of me. Don't ever let Lily feel left out while studying far from home." On the other end, sobs and gasping breaths. I trembled as I spoke. "Lily, don't hate them. They're still your parents, and being grateful to them is not wrong. But I don't want you to live in a lie anymore. I didn't want to tell you, but when your parents see me as a burden, when they want to push me into a nursing home and take this house, I can't stay silent. You need to know the truth. It was your grandmother and me standing behind you, and she gave all the last years of her life for you." A long silence, then Lily's voice, this time firm. "Grandpa, I promise you, from now on I'll stand by you. They may see you as a burden, but to me you are my only anchor." I placed my hand on the faded statement, tears soaking into it. In the darkness of loss, at least I still had Lily, the only granddaughter who understood that family is not a commodity to be bargained away. A few days later, as I sat in the living room, David and Anna barged in without knocking. They carried a stack of papers and slammed them on the table. David spoke sharply, his voice taut as wire. "Dad, we need to settle this. I've arranged with a nursing home and a room is ready. Selling this house will cover your expenses. This is the best option." Before I could respond, Anna cut in, her tone cold. "That's right. The longer you wait, the more it loses value and the higher the costs. Keeping it is useless, only trouble." I clenched my fists, my chest tightening. My voice shook, but I tried to stay calm. "This is the home of your mother, Margaret, and me. I'm not ready to leave." David scowled, slamming his hand on the table. "Stop being stubborn. The facts are clear. You're too old to live here alone. We've found a buyer. All you need to do is sign." His words were like cold knives. I wanted to resist, but his voice grew harsher, Anna's gaze sharp, pressing me into a corner. I felt the room shrinking as if they were driving me into the shadows. And then, bang, the door burst open. Lily stood there, her suitcase still on the porch, her breath quick, her eyes blazing. David and Anna spun around, shocked, while I froze. "Enough!" Lily cried, her voice trembling but fierce. "I've heard everything." The three of us stood stunned, none expecting her return. She had actually arrived earlier, but when she saw her parents' SUV outside, she stopped, slipped quietly by the door, and listened. She heard them plotting to sell the house, to force me into a nursing home, and every word seared her heart. Until she couldn't bear it anymore, she kicked the door open. David stammered, "Lily? What are you—" But before he finished, Lily strode into the center of the room, standing between me and them, tears brimming, her voice unyielding. "I've heard it all, and today I will not stay silent." David spun around, stunned. "Lily!" "What are you doing here?" Her voice broke. "I came back because I couldn't believe what Grandpa told me, until I heard it with my own ears from you." The air shattered. David tried to compose himself, his tone softening. "Lily, you don't understand. We only want what's best for him, for the family." Lily let out a bitter laugh, tears streaming down her face. "Best? Did you ever think about Grandma? This house is the life's work of Grandpa and Grandma, and you call it a burden, an asset to be sold?" Anna cut in sharply. "You're just a child. You don't know anything. Old people need care. We're doing this for him." Lily shouted, her voice breaking yet fierce. "Care? I know exactly who cared for me through 4 years of college. Not you. It was them. Here." She pulled from her bag the documents I had emailed, bank statements, tuition invoices, and thrust them in David's face. "Over $20,000 each year. Nearly $91,000 in total. It was Grandpa and Grandma who paid for my education, not you. And yet you let me thank you for 4 years, all the while knowing the truth." Silence fell like ice. David's face went pale. Anna stammered, You only heard what he said. That doesn't mean—" Lily cut her off, her voice firm. "No, these are bank records. I called the university and they confirmed it. Every payment was made under the names Richard and Helen. Can you deny it now?" The whole house froze. I sat still, my heart pounding, torn between pain and relief. For the first time, the truth was no longer mine to bear alone. Lily raised her head high, tears rolling down. "You taught me to be grateful, but you forgot the greatest debt of gratitude yourselves. Grandpa and Grandma gave up everything, and what about you? You stand here trying to shove him into a nursing home, to sell off Grandma's legacy. I can't believe it." David's face darkened, his voice harsh. "Lily, how dare you talk to your parents like that?" But Lily didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice cracking but steady. "Yes, today I dare. Because if I stay silent, I'll be guilty of betraying Grandma and Grandpa, and that guilt weighs heavier than any scolding you can give me." The tension was suffocating. I looked at my granddaughter and saw my wife's spirit flickering in her eyes. Brave, honest, unafraid to stand up when it mattered. Anna opened her mouth to speak, but David raised his hand to stop her. Both fell silent, not out of persuasion, but because their own daughter had stripped them bare. Lily trembled as she turned to me, her voice choked. "Grandpa, you're not alone anymore. I won't let anyone treat you as a burden again." Tears slid down my sleeve, but in my chest a strange strength ignited. I knew in that moment everything had changed. "Grandpa, come with me," Lily said, her voice trembling yet resolute. "I won't let you stay here alone any more." I lifted my weary eyes, still heavy from the fight with David and Anna the day before. Her words echoed in the empty room, still faintly scented with Margaret's presence. I stayed silent, my gaze fixed on an old photograph on the wall. This house was my entire life with her. Every corner, every scratch on the floor held memories. But now my wife was gone, and my son saw me only as a burden. Lily's offer twisted my heart. I shook my head gently. "Let me think. Give me one night." That night I wandered the house like a lost soul. I touched the burn mark on the dining table where Margaret once hurriedly set down a hot pot of soup, ran my hand along the stair rail where little David once fell and bled, stood long at the window watching the garden where she used to pick roses for the green vase. Everything whispered, "Keep us, don't go." But a clear truth rang in my mind. Where love remains, there is home. My wife was gone. My son wanted me in a nursing home. Only my granddaughter truly loved me. I wrote this in my old notebook, my hand trembling but firm, and in that moment I knew my decision. The next morning I came down to the kitchen. Lily was waiting, her eyes shadowed from a sleepless night. I placed my hand gently on her shoulder. "I'll go with you." Her face lit up, her eyes blazing through tears. She hugged me tight, whispering, "I promise no one will hurt you again." I smiled, though my heart still carried the weight of the house. That very afternoon, I called Anderson, my closest friend and lawyer for decades. I spoke briefly. "I want you to handle the sale of my house, everything legal and discreet. But no one must know, not even my granddaughter. I'll tell her you're just looking after it." Anderson was quiet for a moment, then said, "I understand. If you've decided, I'll take care of it." I hung up, a burden lifted, but I kept it hidden. To Lily, I only smiled. I asked a friend to watch the house. Now I'm at peace. Weeks later, the paperwork was done. Quietly, my granddaughter and I left America on a night flight, without a word to David and Anna. As the plane rose above the clouds, I looked down at the sleeping city, its lights scattered like stars. I knew I had left behind a heavy chapter to begin a new one. Arriving in London, Lily brought me to her small flat. Just 2 bedrooms, a cramped kitchen, but full of warmth. Potted plants lined the table, and an old blue sofa sat in the corner. I sank into it, exhaling. Here there was no grand house, no rose garden of Margaret, but the laughter of my granddaughter, the hot meals she cooked herself. I realized that space does not make a home. Love does, and here this little flat had become my true home. One evening, Lily sat at her computer, typing furiously. I stepped out, overhearing her on the phone with a friend. Her voice was tired. "I don't want to work for others forever. I want to build my own company, create something of my own. But the capital, I need at least £350,000. Without it, my plans are just paper." I stood in the doorway, motionless. My granddaughter, the girl who once cried in my arms when she first came to study in England, was now grown, yearning to stand on her own, yet trapped. I returned to my room, restless. Meanwhile, across the ocean, David and Anna were spiraling. They came back to the house many times, only to find me gone. One day they encountered agents and buyers inspecting it. I later heard those people whispered of a major development coming, Property values soaring, my house worth millions. David and Anna froze, their faces pale. They scrambled to find me, calling neighbors, relatives, but met only shakes of the head. I had vanished. One afternoon in London, I found Lily on the balcony, her face heavy with worry, knees pulled to her chest, eyes staring into the distance. I stepped beside her and laid a hand on her shoulder. Without a word, I pulled a bank card from my pocket and placed it in her hand. There's £350,000 in here. I know you need it to start your business. This is from the house in America. I sold it quietly. Now I give it to you. Use it to begin. Lily stared at the card, tears spilling down her cheeks. She shook her head, clutching my shoulders with trembling hands, her voice breaking. Grandpa, why did you sell it? That was not just a house. It was your life with Grandma, your sweat, your tears, the place filled with her laughter. I'm afraid, if you sold it, you'd lose all your memories. Why would you give up what's most precious to you? I gripped her hand tightly, my voice calm but deep. Lily, my memories don't live in the walls I sold or in deeds or numbers in a bank. They live in you, in these honest tears, in the dreams you carry. Your grandmother and I built our lives not so they'd die with a piece of paper, but so they could be passed on to someone who values them. And that someone is you. Eily broke into sobs, clutching me tightly, her shoulders trembling. Grandpa, I promise I won't let a single penny go to waste. I'll turn it into something you and Grandma can be proud of. I smiled, stroking her hair, my voice unsteady but warm. That's how memories live on, not by clinging to the past, but by planting them into the future. Rumors spread faster than the wind. Just weeks after I left America, neighbors began whispering. Did Mr. Richard sell the house? I saw an agent showing buyers. I heard the land value skyrocketed because of a new commercial project coming. They gossiped in gardens, at the cafe on the corner, in the supermarket parking lot. Piece by piece, a picture formed. The house, my and Margaret's pride, was no longer within David's reach. At first, David and Anna didn't believe it. They stormed the house, pounding on the door, but found only silence. Another time, they stumbled upon prospective buyers on the porch, pointing and discussing square footage, location, and price. David's face drained of color, his eyes bloodshot. Anna pressed him. Are you sure Dad hasn't signed anything? Sure, David growled. Impossible. He doesn't know the law. He has no one but us. How could he sell it? But one morning a letter arrived from Anderson's law office stamped in red. The entire house and adjoining land had been legally authorized for sale. Transaction complete. The buyer was a real estate fund. Everything lawful, airtight, leaving no loophole. David crumpled the letter, screaming in despair. Anna collapsed into a chair, her face white as chalk. They knew they had lost, and lost bitterly. Word reached the extended family. Cousins and siblings whispered behind their backs. David got cut off by his own father. There must be a reason. Too greedy, even heaven won't allow it. An elderly uncle said it outright at a family gathering. You thought your father was a fool, but he turned out wiser than all of us. He kept his dignity, and you lost everything. Those words cut into David's already fractured pride like knives. At work, storms erupted. A longtime business partner refused to sign a new contract, citing lack of financial transparency. In truth, the industry had heard the whispers. David had banked on inheriting the big house, and now he was left with nothing. No one wanted to partner with a man who had lost credibility in his own family. Cold calls, curt emails, all poured down like icy water. Anna endured the sting of social shame. The cocktail parties where she once bragged about her home now turned into arenas of whispers. They lost the house to his father. She returned home, throwing things, screaming at David, You idiot! If you had been softer, more tactful, maybe he wouldn't have turned his back. David stayed silent, his face like stone. Deep down, he knew. The price they were paying wasn't from my stubbornness, but from their own greed. Meanwhile, across the ocean, I sat in Lily's small flat. Each morning I brewed tea, gazing out the narrow London window where sunlight streamed in. Lily worked over her company papers, so engrossed she often skipped meals. In her eyes I saw a fire David never had, the fire of ambition, of building with her own two hands, not depending on anyone else. One afternoon, Lily showed me her business plan, tidy, precise, every figure carefully calculated. She lowered her voice. "Grandpa, thanks to you, I have the chance to make my dream real. I know this money is blood, sweat, and your entire life. I won't let a penny be wasted." My heart ached, but pride surged within me. I didn't need newspapers or gossip to know David and Anna were unraveling. Anderson messaged sometimes. David called. "Wants to know where you are." I said nothing. I replied, "Thank you. Let them learn the lesson they need." Back home, David began losing sleep. Night after night, he tossed, mind spinning. Why did Dad choose Lily? How did the house vanish so suddenly? He replayed every argument, every moment he shouted to put me in a nursing home, and began to realize his own folly. But it was too late. As for me, I felt more at peace than ever. I understood now. Justice doesn't always need a gavel, or debates about right and wrong. Sometimes justice is simply letting the greedy see themselves in the mirror and bow their heads. And this time, justice came quietly, but it was enough to bury all their arrogance. Morning in London carried the smell of coffee and damp, weaving through cobblestone streets. Every day I sat by the small window, teacup in hand, watching Lily immersed in her files. I remembered David being busy once, but his was the busyness of chasing quick profits. In Lily I saw something different, the busyness of conviction, of believing in what is right. Her plan was not fanciful. She wanted to open a company supplying organic foods, linking small European farms directly with customers in the UK. The industry was growing, but competition was fierce. I listened as she explained, "Grandpa, the market wants transparency. People want to know where their food comes from and who tended it. I want to build a brand people can trust completely." Her eyes shone, her voice unwavering. I sat silently, recalling Margaret. She used to say, "If people put honesty first, everything changes." Now that truth lived again, in Lily's words. I nodded softly. "Do it. Your grandma and I built all our lives. Now it's your turn to sow." On her first day meeting investors, Lily wore a pale blue blazer, her hair tied back, clutching her thick business plan. I stayed home, nervous as if it were my own exam. When she returned, her face was tired, but her eyes were ablaze. "They said it's a good idea, but too early. They want proof." I poured her tea, sliding it toward her. "Then we'll prove it." With the capital I gave her, Lily rented a small office on the third floor of an old building. No flashy sign, just a whiteboard that read, "Green Path Foods." Together we wiped desks, set up cabinets, and arranged shelves. My hands trembled with age, but my heart felt young again. I remembered building my own house with Margaret, how we struggled just the same. Hardship struck quickly. Her first shipment, vegetables from Italy, was delayed. Customers canceled and new staff quit. I saw her sitting slumped on the sofa, eyes hollow. I put my hand on her shoulder. "This is the price of being in charge." My son chose the easy path, relying on others. You chose the hard one, standing on your own. But the hard road leads to the places worth reaching. Lily lifted her teary eyes, then nodded. A month later, she turned things around. She signed contracts directly with 2 small farms in Spain, cutting transport costs. Customers returned, trusting her. The day she landed her first major contract, she burst into the flat, hugging me. "Grandpa, I did it!" Joy spread like sunlight across the tiny home. In every step she took, I saw echoes of the old house in America. The bricks, the mortar, the years of labor Margaret and I poured in had transformed into contracts, boxes of fresh produce, customers' smiles. The house was gone, but its value lived on, in a different form. That night, I opened Margaret's old notebook and wrote, "Today, Lily signed her first big deal. Our house has been reborn." I placed it on the shelf beside her picture, whispering, "See, my love, we haven't lost anything. We're still living on in her." While Lily and I built anew across the ocean, David and Anna slid into debt. One of David's projects collapsed, and a client sued for damages. Anna had to sell the luxury car she once flaunted at parties. Angry texts, bitter arguments piled higher each day. That news didn't make me gloat. I only sighed. People don't learn when they're comfortable. They only learn when they lose. And David needed to go through that. One night, Lily sat on the balcony, holding a cup of tea. Her eyes gazing at the dim lights of London, she turned to me. "Grandpa, I miss Grandma." If she were still here, she would smile, seeing you with me now. I nodded, my eyes blurring. Yes, she'd be proud, because we didn't let the house die in vain. In that moment, I realized the journey wasn't over, but we had come halfway, and the other half would be building not only a company, but a new home, a place where memories are planted into the future, not locked in the past. On the day Greenpath Foods opened its office, a light rain fell over London, but the little street where Lily had rented space was bustling. A modest sign hung on the glass door, bold green letters reading, "Greenpath Foods, real farms, real foods." I stood under the awning watching Lily greet customers, her smile so radiant it made people forget the drizzle outside. Inside, the office was no more than a few dozen square meters, with simple tables, wooden shelves stacked with boxes of vegetables, and bottles of olive oil from European farms. But the space felt warm and honest. I stood still, feeling as though I were back in the old kitchen in America, where Margaret once lined jars of jam, where she and I argued about how to stack lemons in the basket. Memories don't die, I thought. They simply move places to survive. A group of British customers walked in, tasting samples. They nodded. "This tastes honest." My heart tightened, then swelled. That was exactly what Margaret used to say. "Real food is real love." Lily pulled me into the center of the room, her voice trembling with pride. "Grandpa, without you, I couldn't have today. Everything starts again from here, thanks to your and Grandma's house. Don't you see? The house has come back to life, in another way." I gripped her hand, nodding, my lips trembling. "Yes, your Grandma must be smiling now." Applause rang out as Lily cut the thin green ribbon. Hands clapped, laughter mingled with the sound of rain tapping the eaves. In that moment, I felt reborn, not just the company, but my very soul. But joy was short-lived. That afternoon, as the last guest left, Lily checked her phone. She froze, her face pale. "Grandpa," she showed me the screen. It was an email from her mother. The subject urgent. "Help us." Inside, frantic words spilled, trembling with desperation. "David is bankrupt. Partners have withdrawn. Debts are piling up, and everything is collapsing. If you know where your grandfather is, please reach out. Ask him to help us survive this. We have no other way." I stayed silent for a long time, eyes fixed on the screen. Inside me, two feelings warred: pride at seeing Lily stand strong, and the old wound tearing open at the thought of my son who once cast me aside, now begging for help. Lily sat beside me, her voice shaking. "Grandpa, will you answer?" I looked at her, my gaze deep. "No, not yet. Justice isn't revenge, it's a lesson. He must go through loss to the very end before he can understand the value of family." Lily was quiet. She understood, though sorrow flickered in her eyes. I placed my hand on her shoulder. "Remember, justice isn't about winning or losing, but everyone must learn to grow. And your father's lesson, the price of choosing money over family, is one he cannot avoid. Outside, the rain had stopped. Golden light streamed through the window, painting the boxes of produce. I stood, adjusted my coat, and said softly, "Let's go. Today is your beginning, not a return to my old shadows." We walked into the street, shoes tapping on the damp pavement. Inside me, a new fire had been lit, warm, steady, resolute. I knew the final battle was still ahead. After receiving the email, Lily tucked her phone away. She didn't reply, but I saw the conflict in her eyes. I knew. No one can completely turn away from their parents, no matter the betrayal. Blood ties are fragile but enduring. I only told her quietly, "Leave it." We don't need to respond yet. But David didn't know how to wait. In his desperation, he did the only thing left. He reached for his daughter. 2 weeks later, on a heavy rainy evening, Lily came home from work, just setting her bag down when her phone rang. She looked at the screen, her face turning pale. "Grandpa, it's Dad?" I nodded. "Answer." David's voice came through, hoarse, stripped of its old arrogance. "Lily, it's your father." "What do you want?" Lily's voice was hard. "I need to talk. Right now. I know you're in London. Don't hang up, please." Lily was silent. David's voice cracked, desperate. "I've lost everything. Work, friends, even my dignity. Your mother cries every night. We have nothing left. You're our last hope. If you know where he is, tell me. I need him." The small room felt crushed under the weight of his words. I sat at the table, listening to every pause. Lily bit her lip, her eyes red. Her voice shook. "Dad, I've stayed silent long enough. Now I'll say it once. You keep saying you need him, you beg him, but did you ever remember you wanted to lock him in a nursing home? Did you remember my tuition, every dollar, was paid by him and Grandma, not you?" The line went silent. I thought the call had dropped until I heard his ragged breathing. Then David burst out, frantic like a drowning man. I know I was wrong. But now, only he can save us. Tell me where he is." Lily broke down crying, but her voice rose in anguish that had been buried too long. "Dad, don't you see? He already saved me. He gave me everything while you only tried to take. He doesn't need to save you. You need to save yourself." She hung up, collapsing with her face in her hands. I walked over, placing my hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing. Sometimes the truth is the only bitter medicine people must swallow." The next day, David didn't call again, but Anna sent a long message. Lily didn't open it. She quietly deleted it. "I don't want more cracks," she said. "I want to leave at least something, so one day they might have a chance to change." I stayed silent. In that moment, I saw Lily as a mirror. She reflected to David and Anna the raw truth. They lost their family because they placed money above love. But she was also a wall, shielding me from their late pleas, protecting me with her genuine love. That night, I wrote in the old notebook, "Justice isn't a gavel in court. Justice is when the once proud must beg, and the wounded no longer need their apology, not out of hatred, but because they found strength elsewhere." Outside, London's lights glowed. Lily sat at the table, bent over her expansion plans. I looked at her, and I saw clearly the old house was gone, but we had built a new one, made of love and truth, and to me, that was justice. One early winter morning, London was blanketed in fog, like a veil covering the whole city. I brewed tea and sat by the window, watching Lily prepare for a meeting with a new investor. She was busy, but her eyes still shone, her smile there. In her I saw continuity, a generation that preserves old values, yet dares to carve its own path. From America, no more messages, no more emails came. Through acquaintances, I heard that David and Anna had quietly sold everything left and moved into a small, rented apartment. They had lost almost everything: money, dignity, friends. The only thing they held onto was the heavy silence between husband and wife. I did not gloat. I only felt peace. Peace, because the wheel of justice had turned the right way. One afternoon, Lily placed a printed sheet in front of me. She said softly, "Grandpa, this is the plan to expand into the Northern European market. I want to use the very money you trusted me with to create something you and Grandma would be proud of." I nodded, eyes misting. That's how memories live on, sewn into the future, not locked in the past. That evening I opened the old notebook and wrote my final entry. Justice is not about winning or losing. Justice is when everyone learns the lesson they must. For David and Anna, the lesson is, money will never replace family. For Lily, the lesson is, family is the foundation for building a future worth being proud of. For me, the lesson is to let go of the past at the right time to choose peace. The next morning, Lily sat with me on the balcony, the late winter sun piercing the fog, pale but warm. She stared into the distance, her voice low. "Grandpa, I keep thinking about Mom and Dad. Even if they were wrong, they're still my parents. I hope one day they understand that justice isn't punishment, it's an opportunity to grow. If they're willing to change, I believe you'll give them another chance." I was silent for a long while, then nodded. I made no promise, nor denial. Because a door never truly shuts. It only waits for those outside to be brave enough to knock again. Lily turned to me and smiled, her voice steady. "Grandpa, justice isn't about winning or losing, but sometimes we have to hurt to grow, and the lesson for my parents was necessary." I looked at her, my eyes welling. In that moment, I knew. The future already had someone to carry it on. Outside, London was still wrapped in fog, but inside our little flat, I saw light, a light that would shine not only for me, but for generations to come. At last, I understood. Justice in a family is not about revenge, nor about scoring victories. Justice is the reminder that anyone who puts money above love will eventually lose both. But those who hold on to true love will always find a home. And I found that home not in old walls, but in Lily's heart. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. Thank you for staying with me, and see you in the next story on Sweet Revenge today.